James Stone, and you're watching Drinking in Bed. I'm joined here by Taylen Peterson, and we've reviewed a few wines now, so I have a pretty good wine buzz going because I didn't have breakfast. And
you're going to tell them that already, Jerry.
I just want to be honest.
I want to wait till later, at least.
I just want to be honest that we've had some wine. You can see how empty these bottles are that we've been reviewing, and we're now going to jump into Troublemaker, which I think is the perfect way to end today's wine reviewing
session,
because we're both kind of troublemakers, and so yeah, let's get into this one. This one is Troublemaker by Austin Hope, which you're like, just pour wine, shut up. Okay, so let me pour some wine.
That's the way I usually operate.
Stop talking.
He always pours me way more than I need.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing I love about Jerry.
That one has the roofie in it, so that's okay. So this Troublemaker by Austin Hope is part of the Hope Family Wines label. And this one is 55% Syrah, 20% Grenache, 20% Mourvedre, and just 5% Petite Syrah. So I'm expecting this to be quite earthy and quite fruity.
A very good mix.
Yeah, definitely. Two things that I look for in a wine. That and one that I can drink in my bedroom. So if this is your first time joining us in Drinking in Bed, this is, the format here is really morning, my bed, wine.
Just enjoying a very good sustainable drink.
I think I'm clearly trying to get you drunk.
It happens. It's just the format of these videos is to take wines or beers or any type of alcohol that is sustainable, doing right by the community, doing right by planet Earth, and also producing a very delicious drink for us to enjoy.
And quality
drink
too.
about it.
Yeah, a quality product, because that's really the interesting thing about organic wines or sustainable wines when they first sort of started, and we've talked about this before, is that organic wines really sucked. I mean, in all honesty, if I could be frank, I mean, they
for
were
a long time, man.
For a really long time. And if you look at sort of organic as a standard compared to price, with wine compared to produce or other products, and I'm going to rant a little bit about Prop 37 because we're here in California, which was thank you. I'm sure I knew that you would approve. But organic wines actually, for the longest time, and still even now, actually get a lower price point than regular wines because organic wines are considered subpar. And when they first came out, they actually were a subpar product. People were making a wine that was... Stop tweeting.
Sorry.
They were making a product that was really about being organic, and wine is about being a good wine. And so the fact that you would even label your wine organic was sort of, it was just a horrible thing to do. Whereas, if you look at organic produce, obviously if you go to Whole Foods or wherever, someplace like that, those particular places charge a premium for organic. And so here in California, we recently had the Proposition 37, which is about labeling food which was genetically modified, and a lot of people were against that because they found it to be elitist, a lot like the organic standard, which if you look at organic as a standard, when it comes to food, yeah, it gains a lot more money, but when it comes to wine, it definitely doesn't. I mean, organic wine is significantly cheaper than conventional winemaking, and so, which is annoying because I personally feel that we should label our foods that are genetically modified. I will save that rant for another time because that would be a 3-hour video. But everyone that voted no on Prop 37, you suck. And now we're just going to drink some wine. So this is from Austin Hope, which is a SIP certified winery. And the thing about certification, can you name the certifications, the sort of federal or global certifications that are out there with wine?
As far as like what the USA
Yes.
USDA does?
Yes.
I cannot.
Okay. Well, there's only two, so there's like the USDA organic certification, and then there's Dementor's biodynamic certification. And those are the two certifications that kind of most wines sort of fall into. But there's been a movement in the past 3 or 4 years for localized certifications, which we've talked about in other videos. I personally feel add a lot more value to the winemaking process on the ecological footprint, because having a federal certification regulate a localized food movement, as we've seen, is not really efficient.
Yeah, well, I mean, this country is very large.
Yes.
And has many different different climates, different changes the way that the weather comes to them. And so you have wines that come from California that have one type of weather pattern come through them. They get a certain amount of rainfall. You have places in the Midwest that have completely different weather, and you have places in the South, the Northeast, they're all different. And so trying to do this on a federal level, while it's a great cause and I think it's a good idea, it still doesn't have the same value as taking something that's local and say, this is what California is good for, and this is how it can affect its own local community.
Right. Well, it's sort of the same, right? If you look at regulation on a political level, there's a reason that we have federal and there's a reason that we have state.
Yes.
And there's a reason that we have local government. And, the idea that food is regulated on a federal level, outside of those same standards is sort of obnoxious, because food is completely a local thing. And so, SIP certification kind of embodies that. I mean, it really looks at what is important on this local level, and it's not just the USDA type standards, whether or not there's pesticides, but it's also whether or not there's solar and what's their water usage and how they treat their workers. Do they have health insurance? Do they provide sort of do they teach them English if they don't know them English? Because actually there's a lot of people that farm our food that don't speak English, for those of you that don't know that. So we actually, I was going to totally rant about food prices, but I think that's just because I'm drunk. So.
You touched on a great point. You touched on a great point about water usage, and here in California, one state that does have a big issue with water.
Huge.
We have droughts that come through here. The winter season is when we get our rain, and we've had a few seasons without rain. And so having wineries that which typically use a ton of water in their entire process, that don't use a lot of water, is very important. And that's one of the things that SIP looks at, is making sure that you're not using a ton of water in your process. And that's something I think is a very local issue again we're talking about. And there are plenty of places in the United States that get plenty of precipitation throughout the year, and so they can have a different certification. And so while the USDA has their certification on organic, that's great that they're trying to do stuff from a federal level. It's also great that there's local organizations trying to do this as well, that are more tailored towards the needs and what is expected of a community.
Well, and you mentioned something that's really quite valuable, because when you talk about, we talked earlier when we were reviewing this Talbot's Creek Rosé, we talked about the fact that Talbot's Creek is dry farmed, and dry farming saves a lot on water, which, when you look, like a lot of these wines, some of these wines are from the Paso Robles region, and even in that region, when you travel just a couple miles, one region gets on average 13 inches of rain a year, and just like a few miles east, and you're talking about 34 inches of rain a year. Right. And whether or not that winery can dry farm compared to this other winery is completely a local issue, and has nothing to do with the federal government. And so, I feel like we've been talking about politics a lot, but, so yeah, I mean, these local certifications just add a level of value to the communities that they support, and they're extremely valuable. And SIP is definitely one of those certifications that's worth checking out. I mean, they do some really interesting stuff. They look at the bigger picture, and that's what you want when it comes to making good wine. You want the bigger picture. So let's drink. Yeah, definitely. Let's have some Troublemaker. My mom always used to tell me growing up that my middle name was Trouble, which it's not. It's James, but she said it was Trouble.
So what do you get right off the bat when you smell this?
This is one of those barnyardy, just like it's a dirty old sock, but like in a good way. It's a dirty old sock.
Very, very dank. Dank smell to me. Very much. It smells kind of wet. And barnyardy, it's very much that like wet straw.
Yeah.
Like that, but again, we'll talk about this a lot throughout the series. I'm sure as we get these things, it's a very good thing for wine. It's a very good smell.
It turns some people off though. I mean, some people actually really don't like that kind. I mean, they find that sort of funky smell in blue cheese to be weird, or in wines to be weird, and we don't like those people. But
we still love you. But it's a very distinct smell, and this wine embodies it very well. And I think that's the first thing I noticed when I first put my nose to it.
And the flavor is consistent. Now I have to say, I was expecting more fruit.
Yeah, I was as well.
And that's not like a bad thing. I mean, I just like it kind of had like it was sort of hinting toward like the nose has a little bit of that like red fruit to it, so I was expecting it to kind of like surprise me and go for the fruit, but it actually surprised me by not going for the fruit.
I'll say that the Troublemaker name I think fits well with it though. It kind of reminds me of that kind of dark alley, perfect little way to go.
This is where usually like where you can find Taylen on a Saturday night.
Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I have video.
No, but it leads me down that perfect little way where it's very dank. It's musky. It's got a very thick feel to it.
No, I mean, like if I was going to describe this in sort of cinematic terms, I mean, this is sort of like a film noir type Tim Burton kind of thing. I mean, it's dark.
I was almost going to go to Sin City route.
Yeah, I mean,
when I was thinking about the alleys, that's where I went.
It's like, there's some like, I mean, there's this kind of grit to it that really, really fits,
Yeah, and it's brought out by the very first smell, and then that taste that's very consistent with it, that fits perfectly with it.
It has so the one thing that's sort of light on the nose, but I think when you drink it, it has a lot of the sort of fungal kind of mushroomy type flavors to it. So, which I always enjoy. I mean, I think that sort of barnyard and mushroom type notes go really well. So I mean, obviously lots of herbal and heavier dishes are going to pair well with this.
That leads exactly into what my thoughts were on like a very deep risotto. Like a risotto would be perfect with this.
Yeah.
Something that's going to, again, with the mushrooms.
Right.
Having a mushroom dish with this, like a risotto and mushroom.
Some shiitakes or like some chanterelles, something like really, you don't know white mushrooms here. You want something that really has some earth to it.
Yes. Yeah, you want it to be very dirty. You want dirt with this one.
Dirt, but not dirty.
Yeah. Earthy. The finish, though. How do you feel about that?
This has just has a little bit of mint in itself. Like, I mean, this too is just kind of, it's like slightly there. I mean, it's not as strong as what we've had earlier, but for a wine that on the nose is so strong and earthy and has that kind of barnyard smell to it, and then on the palate has such a fungal, strong, dirty kind of flavor to it. I mean, you really expect that finish just to linger and to really kind of have some grit to it, but it's actually pretty crisp.
Yeah, it is very, it sticks around. It's kind of a little bit dry, and it just kind of stays there and just kind of leaves that flavor that you're having with you. It's very nice.
It's also pretty inky too. I mean, there's not a whole lot of light that's getting through this one.
Very dark, yeah.
And I would say, like, considering how the notes are how strong the notes are, it's not extremely heavy. I mean, I would say it's a pretty medium-bodied wine as far as that goes. I mean, like, everything that you would smell, you would expect this to just be like a steak that you'd have to chew through, and it really is not that kind of wine at all. I mean, it's, which I think, is a good thing, because it actually makes Troublemaker a really versatile wine. I mean, you could clearly pair this with something kind of heavy, but you could also probably pair it with something pretty light because it's not so overwhelming.
Right. Yeah.
if I was going to do a recipe pairing with this, I would slow roast some early grilled tomatoes, which if you guys don't know what early grilled tomatoes, they are dry farm tomatoes. So they're a little bit smaller than regular tomatoes. They're really intense. They have that really nice kind of umami flavor to it. I would slow roast those on the grill and then make a marinara from that. And then I would just do a simple pasta and marinara sauce and some basil to kind of go with like the mint that's in here and really call it a day. I mean, I don't think you have to you don't have to overcomplicate it. I mean, this wine.
I'm gonna go back to the risotto that I was talking about earlier. I think that would be my perfect dish with this. Is something that's gonna be very earthy.
Like a mushroom risotto? Like
dirt, yeah, it has the dirt flavor with it. I'm going to go with the risotto, the mushroom risotto, that has kind of that coffee flavor with it, maybe even a little bit of chocolate note. It's not a super fruity flavor at all. Like that's not what this is.
No,
the chocolate isn't necessarily the best. It's going to be more dry, but I think that'd still pair well with this. It's a very good flavor.
It definitely earns the name Troublemaker.
Yes, it does.
I could get into a lot of trouble drinking this wine.
I think I could too.